Guardians, the final shape is here, and with it brings new weapons, new missions, new subclasses, and even new supers. Today, we're looking at one of those new supers, the Titan's Twilight Arsenal. I had one focus in mind with this build. I wanted to get out a build that could be obtained fairly early in the campaign. With this build, you can hack and slash your way through enemies, and when the time comes, stand strong and unbreakable from all that is thrown at you, unlike Destiny servers on launch day. So rally your fellow Guardians, prepare your arsenal, and join us as we go over a very strong early game prismatic build. Remember to leave a like if you find this video helpful. If you like seeing build videos and other Destiny 2 helpful content, consider hitting that subscribe button. With that being said, let's jump right on into it. The first thing we're taking a look at is the new super, Twilight Arsenal. With it, you can throw 3 axes from distance, and after those axes hit, you can pick them back up and either hack and slash your way through enemies or throw them again for extra damage. This super just feels so nice to use. The design of it is immaculate, but it honestly does pretty decent damage. Having the ability to either do damage at range or pick up those axes and slice through a ton of enemies means that you have easy DPS options, or you can use it for ad clearing. It's a pretty decent mix of both. And when it comes to the abilities, the class ability we're taking is going to be Rally Barricade. You could go with thrusters since it does have a short cooldown as well, but honestly, I like Rally Barricade because it offers a mix of a short cooldown, but at the same time offering you protection and increased reload speed. And since we're on Prismatic, for all of our abilities, we're gonna have options to choose from. So for our melee, I'm going with Shield Throw. You should be able to get this fairly on, but having a melee that you can use at range plus one that will give you overshield actually feels pretty strong. You could go with something like Frenzy Blade since you do get 3 charges of that, but for me, I wanted that option to have more void overshield. And when it comes to the grenade, I'm choosing the Glacier Grenade. We're using a light based melee, so I want to bring a dark based melee. And with Strand, we only have the Shackle Grenade, which doesn't deal damage, at least not enough to really kill enemies. So I'm taking the Glacier Grenade because you can use it one of 2 ways. You can either use it and its crystals to get extra transcendent energy for your dark side, or you can use it with our first aspect, Unbreakable. And with Unbreakable, you hold your grenade button to summon a void shield and block a portion of the incoming damage, which will gradually drain your grenade energy, but it will also give you an overshield. Depending on how much damage you actually block, depends on how much damage you're going to output afterwards, because once you're done, you'll send out a void blast that deals a decent amount of damage if you block enough damage. What I love about this aspect is that it gives you an option to get up close and personal with enemies and not take any damage. Not only are you going to be able to initially block all that damage, but you'll also be able to deal a ton of damage back, and at the same time, you're gaining an overshield in the process. The second aspect that we're choosing is Diamond Lance. Originally, I was thinking Knockout for that extra healing, but the amount of void overshield that you can create with this class, I decided Diamond Lance might be a bit better. Not only are you getting an extra fragment slot, but being able to freeze targets on demand and at a distance means that you have 2 ways to close gaps on enemies. You can either pick up a Diamond Lance and chuck it at them to freeze them, or you can pull out your Unbreakable shield and just walk right on up to them. The great thing is, with Diamond Lance's new rework, any ability or stasis weapon will create a Diamond Lance. That means that when you use your Unbreakable shield, you're gaining an overshield, closing that gap, and when you get that kill with that void blast afterwards, you're creating a Diamond Lance, which you can then slam into the ground to kill any leftover enemies. This combo makes it so that you can easily get up close and personal with enemies. And because you can get up close and personal, we're taking the Facet of Protection, so that while you're surrounded by combatants, you're more resistant to incoming damage. With the added benefit that when you are transcendent, that effect is increased. You gain even more damage resistance. And that will be a common theme. Whenever you go transcendent, you'll get extra weapon damage, more abilities to use, and take less damage. So you do want to go transcendent fairly often, because with this build, we focus on using our light and dark abilities, so you can get that transcendent back pretty quick. The next facet that I like to take is Facet of Ruin, so that this increases the size and damage of the burst whenever you shatter a stasis crystal or a frozen target. This also helps for solar ignitions, but we won't be touching on that side of it. We have our Glacier Grenade and we have our Diamond Lance, so we can immediately freeze targets or create those crystals, and now they're gonna both deal more damage and deal more damage over a larger area. After that, I like to take the Facet of Courage, so that our light based based abilities will deal increased damage to targets affected by darkness debuffs. So the way you use this is you take that diamond lance, you chuck it at an enemy to freeze them, and then you can use one of your abilities, whether it's your unbreakable blocking shield with that void blast or your void melee, and both of those will now deal increased damage against that frozen target. This can help a lot when it comes to bosses. Because you have those void axes, you can either use your diamond lances or you can use some strand debuffs to be able to deal even more damage with your super. And the next fragment we're taking a look at is Facet of Balance, so that rapidly defeating enemies with light damage gives you melee energy, and rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. Because this just says with light or darkness damage, this includes your weapons, and because of that we have options from everything from diamond lance to our void projectile shield. We can also then use our light based weapons or our darkness based weapons to get back whatever energy we need, and that will be the focus of this build, cycling through all of our abilities as much as we can. We also like to take Facet of Purpose, so that picking up an orb of power grants you a buff based on your super. In our case, we're using a void based super, so we're granted an overshield, and with how many orbs you create, you're constantly getting an overshield from this build. And finally, I like to take Facet of Blessing, so that melee final blows start health regen, and while you're transcendent, the melee final blows will start health regeneration for you and your allies. For our last fragment, I'm leaving this open as of right now, since we will be unlocking those prismatic fragments over time. The fragment that I'm going for is Facet of Bravery, so that when we defeat targets with our grenade, we're granted volatile rounds to our void weapons, and defeating targets with our powered melee grants unraveling rounds to your strand weapons. I absolutely love unraveling rounds, and like we said, we can freeze targets and use that shield throw to easily kill any target, so that means we should have pretty high uptime with unraveling rounds for our strand weapons. But at the same time, you can use that grenade to get volatile rounds if you want to rock void weapons. So something like the Hammerhead, which is a void machine gun, can be super strong with this build. The exotic of choice for this build is Heart of Inmost Light, which allows you to use your abilities to empower your other abilities, giving them increased regeneration. So the gameplay loop goes like this. You want to use all of your abilities as much as you can, and that means you can use your shield throw to create that overshield, or you can take out your unbreaking shield to walk right up to a target or just block some extra damage if you're in a time of crisis, and in the same time you're gaining overshield. But the beautiful thing about this build is that it allows you to close those gaps. You can either take a diamond lance to freeze a target and walk right up to them, or you can take your unbreaking shield, walk up to them and blast them back after blocking all of their damage. You then use your melee and your class ability to then cycle back to your unbreakable shield in case you need it again. And because we're gonna have ways to use both light and darkness, you want to continuously go transcendent, which not only means increased weapon damage, but also you get access to that new grenade, which honestly isn't that good on Titan. Listen, you get the ability to suspend a ton of targets, which does come in handy, but it doesn't deal a ton of damage. So if you are trying to use that on a boss, it's not really worth it unless they're a mini boss. See, the thing is, we are facing a lot of these new enemies that come with those stasis and strain abilities, so you can now suspend them, which could protect you and your team. And that's what this build is about. Protection. You gain ways to freeze targets to take less damage. You gain ways to pull up a shield and give yourself an overshield, which is going to only increase the amount of damage that you can take. So constantly cycle through those abilities, using your unbreakable shield whenever you get a chance to generate an overshield and take less damage. And at the same time, pick up those diamond lances. They're a ton of fun to use now. So let's talk about ways to improve the build. First up, for your stats, I am shooting for 100 resilience. As we mentioned time and time again, taking less damage is always important, especially in hard content. Not only this, but when we're on Titans, that resilience is going to lower our class ability cooldown. And like we mentioned with Hoyle, we want to use all of our class abilities. Not only will you start your class ability regeneration rate by using your barricade, but you'll also be able to create orbs from some of our later mods. After that, I like to shoot for 100 discipline. Our new aspect, the Unbreakable, is tied to our grenade, so we want to be able to get that shield back as much as possible. So that will be our main priority. And because we are going for that survivability, I'm taking a mix of recovery as well as strength. With recovery, we're going to be able to start that regeneration process a little bit quicker, which does come in handy since we don't have something like restoration proccing for us. But with our melee, we also get to create an overshield. So for me, that means I'm roughly going for 70 in each of these. But for you, that could look like something different, maybe about 50 to 60 in each. Just depends on the armor that you have. And when it comes to our armor mods, for our helmet mods, we want to take a siphon mod so that we're generating orbs for us and our team. This could be either a harmonic siphon, or it could be a solar siphon, siphon. It mainly depends on what your main weapon is. I've had a ton of fun using the new auto rifle that is a solar-based support frame auto rifle. So in my case, I'd be using a solar siphon. But if you do want to use those void weapons, potentially ones with repulsor brace, then go for it and take that harmonic siphon. After that, I like to pair it with heavy ammo finder and heavy ammo scout so that we're now generating more heavy ammo for us and our team. And mind you, with the final shape, heavy ammo finders are now going to be stronger, at least if you're dying. See, they do take 20% more kills to actually activate, but it used to be that if you died, your whole progress of working towards that next heavy ammo brick was reset. But now it actually persists with you. So if you happen to die a decent amount, this is actually a pretty big buff for you. But if you're able to stay alive a ton, then it's probably going to be a little bit of nerf. Either way, who doesn't want more heavy ammo? And when it comes to the gauntlet mods, I'm taking 3 mods that will give us back more ability energy. We have impact induction, focusing strike, and momentum transfer. I really thought about using firepower to generate an orb with our grenade, but I wasn't sure if that would actually interact with the new aspect Unbreakable. And because I didn't have time to test it, I don't want to recommend it yet. But if it can work with that void shield, then feel free to use that to have another way to create orbs. But for the time being, this means that we can use our powered melee to gain both our grenade and our class ability. And then we can also use our grenade to gain back more energy for our melee. Remember, we want to be using all 3 of our abilities as much as possible. So this is just giving you more ways and more options to gain back even more ability energy. And when it comes to the chest, we're taking 3 resistance mods. I usually like to take a harmonic, especially now because we have so many different damage types coming at us. In the past, I really recommended an arc, solar, and void. But right now, I'm gonna recommend a harmonic so that you can have one mod that only costs 1 point to use. And then we can take something like concussive dampener so that we get a flat 15% from any AoE damage. My last damage resistance, I'm gonna try to pair to whatever activity I'm doing. In the final shape campaign, there's a lot of stasis and strand abilities coming at you. So in my case, I chose strand, but you could also go with stasis. It kind of depends on whatever activity you're running. And for the leg mods, I like to take 2 weapon surge mods, as well as recuperation. With recuperation, we're gonna get an immediate bump to our health whenever we pick up an orb. But with our weapon surge mods, we're gonna be able to do an extra 17% damage to whatever weapon element we choose. In my case, like I said, I was running a solar auto rifle as my primary. So I ran a solar heavy as well. And because I have 2 weapons dealing the same type, I went with the solar weapon surge so that both my primary and my heavy would deal more damage. Again, this is gonna kind of match up with whatever weapons you're using. If you want to use 2 strand weapons as well as a void weapon, then maybe go with 2 strand options or a strand and a void. Either way, we want to deal more damage with our weapons. So match it up to whatever weapons you're going to be using most. As for the mark, the first one we're taking is powerful attraction. A lot of this build will be rotating around picking up orbs, and powerful attraction makes it super easy to pick up orbs. Again, you want to use your class ability as much as possible so that you're proccing that empowered regeneration for your other abilities. So now that we are using our class ability to pick up orbs and empower ourselves, we also want to take Reaper so that after we use that class ability, we can then use our weapons to create an orb. Orbs are going to give us health, but they will pair into our artifact mod later, but we'll touch on that in a minute. The final mod that I will be taking is Bomber. So we're giving ourselves more grenade energy whenever we use our class ability. Like we mentioned, the Unbreakable aspect is tied to our grenade, so this just gives us more options to get our grenade back a little bit quicker. So taking a look at the artifact for this season, there are a ton of options that could be good for you. In the second column, they're all about weapon perks, so you could match these up to whatever weapons we're using. If you're using the Pale Heart weapons, the Winning Hand can be used to overcharge them to deal more damage in any activity that has overcharge modifiers. So that column, you really just need to match up whatever weapons you're using. The main ones we're looking at are in column 4 and column 5. First on the list is Radiant Orbs, so that while you have a Prismatic subclass equipped, picking up an Orb of Power makes you radiant. A lot of these artifact mods allow you to gain a huge benefit by using Prismatic, and that's exactly what we're doing. So we're taking this one to be able to generate a ton of orbs and then immediately go radiant and deal 25% more damage with our weapons. We also want to take Void Hegemony, so that while you have that Prismatic class equipped, defeating a weakened target provides an overshield. We have so many ways to generate overshields for ourselves, but when you pair this with something like Buried Bloodline, you can easily weaken a ton of targets, and this is just going to give you more options to get an overshield. And playing off that last one, we also want to take Expanding Abyss, so that void sources deal increased damage to weakened targets. Now in boss phases, mini boss phases, anywhere that you're going to be using your void super or your Unbreakable shield plus your void melee, you're going to be dealing increased damage, especially when you have teammates that are either weakening or you bring a source of weakening yourself. Like we mentioned, Buried Bloodline, or you can take Tractor Cannon. There are a ton of ways to actually cause weakening. So this just means that your super and all of your abilities basically are going to be dealing increased damage. And finally, we also like to take Shield Crush so that when we have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or more importantly, a Void Overshield, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage. This pairs perfectly with Hoyle because it basically gives you Hoyle just by getting an Overshield. But not only that, pairing with our first one that we mentioned, Radiant Orbs, we also get the ability to get more grenade energy and deal increased damage from our grenade basically all the time. All you have to do is pick up an orb. It makes it super easy to cycle through your abilities since you will be creating Overshield for yourself as well as going Radiant. So when it comes to your weapons, you have a ton of options. The main thing you want to be looking at is what weapons you want to use to generate light ability energy, as well as what weapons you want to be using to generate darkness ability energy so that you can go Transcendent. Remember, when we have Facet of Bravery, we can use our powered melee to get unraveling rounds for our strained weapons. So in that kinetic slot, one of the most fun weapons to use is the new rocket assisted sidearm, The Call. You can get some fantastic perks with this. I already have a role that has Strategist on it so that I can get back more class ability energy, or you can get Demolitionist on it to get back more grenade energy. Pairing that with something like Desperate Measures, it will put out a decent amount of damage. And if you add in the fact that you're now also going to be getting more super energy from its origin trait, you're getting back to your axes pretty quick. There are a ton of other strand options to use. You could go with the stasis option, but I find that most of the time I want to take a strand weapon for those unraveling rounds, as well as a lot of strand weapons just feel stronger in my opinion. I don't really like to use a kinetic in this slot since I like to use my primary slot as my main way to gain darkness energy for going Transcendent, which is why something like the rocket assisted frame is so good since you get such good ammo economy while dealing good damage with it. And when it comes to the energy slot, there are two main options that I really love. First, no hesitations, is the new support frame auto rifle. I was a little hesitant for this weapon, and while you're in solo scenarios, it's not going to be that good. But in team-based scenarios, when you get the perk Physic with it, it's really strong. With Physic, you can use this weapon to not only heal your teammates, but also give yourself restoration. We already have a ton of ways to gain Void Overshield, block damage, or freeze targets to not take any damage. But with Physic, if you do take a ton of damage all at once, like from a boss, just shoot your teammate and you heal yourself. It feels so strong. But in the off chance you don't have this weapon, the Mana Core is a really good backup option. See, we're also taking that Facet of Bravery to get those unraveling rounds for our strand weapons. And since this is a void weapon, we'll get those volatile rounds as well for this weapon, which is going to make it even stronger. But with this weapon, when you are in that anti-grav mode, you can deal sustained damage to have another way to generate a void overshield. Not to mention, it also reduces combatants' accuracy against you, meaning you'll just take less damage as well. These two combined, it feels like a ton of fun to use. You fly around everywhere, taking less damage, generating more overshield for yourself, and mowing through the enemies. So when it comes to the heavy slot, again, you have a few options. During the Final Shape campaign, there are a ton of enemies that you need to hit a crit for. So I was actually really enjoying bringing a machine gun. One of my favorite options is the Hammerhead. With roles like Rampage and Killing Tally, you can absolutely shred through targets. And again, this is a void weapon, so you can proc into that volatile rounds. Alternatively, you could take the new Pro Memoria, which can also get Demolitionist and Strategist to gain even more class ability energy. And because it's Strand, you will be proccing into that Unraveling rounds as well. And remember, when we do cause those Strand or Stasis debuffs on targets, they're taking more damage from our Void abilities, which we have a ton of. The main thing you want to keep in mind for this is taking at least one Strand weapon so that you can proc those Unraveling rounds and deal more overall damage. But you kind of have a little bit of free reign when it comes to these weapons. Those are just the options that I find to be the best. Between gaining consistent overshield as well as pulling up our new Void Unbreakable shield that allows us to tank through damage and push out a blast that deals a ton of damage back to enemies, we have ways to give ourselves immaculate survivability as well as output decent damage. I've had a ton of fun rocking this build through the legend version of the Final Shape campaign. Since you unlock Twilight Arsenal fairly early on, this build should be fairly accessible from the start. But remember, mastering this build is only the beginning. Experiment with different combinations, tweak your loadout to suit your playstyle, and never stop honing your skills. If you found this video helpful or just enjoyed seeing a new perspective, feel free to like the video and comment down below on what you might change or how you'd improve this beginner's prismatic Titan build. Keep an eye out for future videos as we continue to explore the ever-evolving world of Destiny 2. Until then, may the threads of fate be ever in your favor. This is Lucky Mech, signing off. See you on the next adventure, Guardians.